You should not be eating these plants unless you've thoroughly researched them. I'm just providing uses to help you remember.
Here we have a white pine. White pines have needles that some people use for tea for vitamin C. Also, pines have pitch, and that pitch can be used as a glue and to stick things together.
Here's our first ear burdock.
Here's the second ear burdock. Burdock burrs have little hooks on them. That was the inspiration for Velcro. And typically, the first ear burdock is dug up by the roots and eaten as a root vegetable. This second ear burdock is mostly just those annoying seeds that get stuck in the pet hair. This is a domesticated blackberry. These berries will bear twice. They'll bear once in June and once in the fall. Most species of the domestic blackberries have two crops. There's also a wild blackberry, which will only bloom once. And here is the wild blackberry. So these make black raspberries in June. Trees that make acorns are oak trees, and here we have two species. One is swamp white oak, and then one our state tree, the white oak. Acorns are an edible nut, but they're full of brown tannins. It's the same substance that you find in tea, and so to eat acorns, we usually shell them and soak them in several changes of water to wash out the bitter tannins. These berries on this plant are called pokeberries. They're from this plant called pokeweed. The plant itself in this stage is toxic. The seeds inside the berries and also the stems have turned red and other toxic qualities. But as a young plant in the early spring, before any of this happens, people have traditionally picked young shoots and called it poke salad. It's a type of collard green that they serve in the South.
This plant is Queen Anne's lace. It's also a wild carrot. It looks like poison hemlock, so this is not one I would recommend ever trying. It's just a carrot. It's not worth the risk. It does have hairy stems. That's how you could tell the difference between it and hemlock, but that is just for you to help remember it.
Here we have a black walnut, and they are ready to be harvested. To harvest them, you need to leave the walnut nuts to get them out of the hull, and then you need to probably put on some gloves to pick that up, and they need to be dried out for a couple weeks till they're dry enough to shell the nuts out. If you do it right now, the nut will be too wet, and it'll get stuck in the shell. There are some insects that eat the hull. They're called walnut maggots, but they're not harmful, and they don't eat the nut inside of the kernel there. They're just on the outside. Here we have the food of the monarch butterfly milkweed. Milkweed has milk. When you break the stems, milk comes out. It was a wart remedy. You can put it on warts and make them go away. Takes repeated applications. These are too big to eat, but when pods are really tiny, you could boil them, and they taste kind of like broccoli. Young flowers are also edible, and very young shoots in early spring, kind of at the same time with pokeweed, milkweed can be gathered to eat. Here we got a goldenrod plant. This is one of the late fall flowers for bees to get their honey. Goldenrod honey is a dark color, rich flavored honey. It tends to crystallize a lot. I like to use the stalks here in the fall, late fall and winter, as hand drill fire starters. But I also have some friends that say that you could use the leaves dried out to make a tea flavoring. I have not tried that one yet, so I would not recommend yet.